he gave me a real life example of what it looks like when Christ comes for us.
Thank you for joining us for the Blended Kingdom Families podcast. This podcast is for blended families, the people who love them, and anyone who just wants to improve their marriage and family relationships.
BKF exists to break the cycle of divorce, equip marriages, and unite blended families with the truth of God's Word. It is our hope that today you will receive biblical guidance and practical resources that will bring unity and peace to create your thriving, healthy home. Let's jump in.
Hey guys, welcome to the BKF podcast. We are so excited you're here with us today. If you haven't already, please take an opportunity, like, share, comment, subscribe. If you're listening on Audible, just know that our entire podcast is in video format on YouTube. You can go hit subscribe. It's the cool thing to do. And you'll be notified every single Monday when we drop a new podcast. Today, we're excited. Matthew Rachael Gilbert, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys, we're so excited to have you here. Rachel and I have been friends for a while, and we're in school together, and Rachel just graduated, and so I'm just excited to have you here today and have Matthew with you as well. But you guys, I first want to tell you about this awesome couple. So a little bit about Matthew. He's a chiropractor practitioner, CEO of the Back and Body Clinic, which didn't just win like one of the top awards like in Denton County or something.
Yeah, two of them.
Two of them, yeah, you know, just two. Awesome. That's so awesome. When he's not in the office, Matthew enjoys spending time with his wife, Rachel, and their three kiddos, Ellie, Olivia, and Zeke. And I love all the pictures that you put of your family on social media. It's just, I love it. Rachel, you guys, some of you may know her. She's a wife, mom, counselor, business owner, speaker, and podcast host of Real Talk with Rachel, which if you are not subscribed, like you need to go and do that right now because it's awesome. Absolutely awesome. She has so many amazing speakers that come on, you guys. And Rachel loves to help women find their voice and be brave enough to use it. Love that. And she loves to have real conversations and help women live free so they can pursue their God-given dreams. So you guys, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited, and you know, obviously getting to know you guys and obviously having you on the podcast is exciting for us, but we want to know more about you guys. So beyond all that stuff, what do you got? Tell us about your family, what you guys like to do, anything fun you like to do.
Well, I think in a nutshell, we're kind of an adventurous family. We love to travel. We love to, we probably get ourselves too busy with getting involved in things. Three kids, our oldest is getting into high school now. She's into cheer and drama and debate and all of that. Our middle child's into climbing, and that's gotten our whole family into climbing in the gym. And not many places in Texas to find rocks, but we've gotten in the gym and doing that together more. And then my youngest is fifth grade, and he's now getting into tackle football. So we've been doing flag football a few years. So that's kind of us with our kids. And then us, we just we seem to always be busy getting into something with business or travel. We just came back from a 16-year anniversary trip this summer. So went to Mexico and had a great time there. So.
Yeah, and he mentioned the adventure thing. When we were in Mexico, we did something they call an outdoor adventure. And to be honest, it was really his idea. I just agreed to do it, which was completely terrified, but it ended up being the best day ever. They took us by boat to an island, and then we rode up in the Jeeps into the mountains and the mules, and we zip-lined and rappelled and rode a water slide where we had to wear a face mask, and it was terrifying but also amazing. And I felt like there was a photographer on the trip, and those are my favorite pictures ever of us because it really represents just us as a couple. We love adventurous stuff. I mean, you know, he pulls me out of my shell and I rein him in. You know, we kind of, it's a yo-yo thing, but so those pictures and that adventures totally explains us as a couple.
I love that. And I remember seeing those on your social media when y'all went down that slide. That was the funniest thing ever. But that looked, the same thing. I would have been terrified. So it would have taken him.
When you're about to go on a water slide and they put a hockey mask on you.
Yeah.
You know,
I was like, wait,
right.
what? And elbow pads and
Oh my goodness.
People go down this slide. The normal slide, you're fine. It looks scary, but just cross your arms, you'll be fine. They're putting helmets on you. I mean, that's
Yeah.
That's
Brace
when
yourself.
they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's okay. Bueno.
Yeah, bueno, you'll be fine.
He knew he was going to hear from me at that because the whole way he was like, it's fine, we're safe. And then they put a mask on. And I'm like, really? This is what we're about to
They
do?
didn't tell me about this one.
Okay.
It was a fun time. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, Rachel, your podcast, it has won some big awards. And like I said, you guys, if you're not subscribed, I mean, Rachel, and when it's real talk with Rachel, like it's just real. It's real and raw. And I think that's what I love about it. You're just so transparent and vulnerable just about your experiences and then the people that you bring on as well. And I think that's why so many people relate to it. But just share with us real quick your heart behind that, why you got that started, and just, more about that.
Yeah, I've always been somebody, it's probably not surprising to a lot of people in my life that I decided to become a counselor because I've always been somebody, I like deep and real conversations. I don't do super great with just talking surface level stuff. And so I've always loved those conversations and I've loved to do it face to face with people. And then I just felt like, why don't we have these kinds of conversations where other people could listen in and maybe learn something and have these hard conversations and make people feel like they're not alone or, they can glean some wisdom from it. And so when the podcasting scene came on, when I became aware of it, it was around a lot longer before I decided to do this. But I just knew it was a vehicle the Lord was calling me to use. And it's such a get-to do that. And I just love doing it. I love having those conversations and then the direction that God takes them, and then when I hear the listeners say, how did you know I was going through that? And I'm like, I didn't. The Lord did though. And yeah.
So good. And so now, I know you have one that releases, you have an episode that releases on Monday, but you also have an episode that releases on Wednesdays, correct?
Yes. Yeah, so Wednesdays are guest interviews and Mondays are just short little, so before I was a podcaster, I would go live on Facebook a lot. Because again, I just love being spirit led and I feel like the Lord gave me a message and I just want to share it. And that's kind of part of who I am, is just a little more raw, a little more not as scripted, if you will, which can be great and not so great at times. But I miss doing those. When I started the podcast, I found I was using a lot of my energy on those and not getting to do as many Facebook Lives and stuff. And people missed those. And I thought, those ideas still pop in my head. Why don't I do it and just stick them on the podcast? And so those Monday ones are short and they're really more directed to help people kind of dig into starting their week out, getting with the Lord and seeing what he wants to say to us. Yeah.
No, that's so good. And I love, and you also tackle a lot of stuff on mental health. You are a counselor. Scott's a counselor, and I'm still in school. Same program that Rachel.
Be a counselor
will be when we're halfway there. We're halfway there. But I love that you touch on that too, because you touch on a lot of topics that people just want to dance around and that are hard to talk about. So I just appreciate that so much about it.
Yeah.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, the world needs to talk about sensitive topics, and we need people that are just being like, you know what, this is what's on my heart. This is what needs to be talked about. And more importantly, this is what the scripture says. This is what, what the truth is. So I love what you're doing, and it's amazing. And I know you guys are passionate about marriage. We at Blended Kingdom Families, we're a step family and a marriage ministry. So we're going to dive into marriage stuff. And I love this question. And we talked about this on our pre-interview, but I love it. So what's the difference between how the world views marriage and how believers view marriage? Because the reason I want to ask this question is I think it's really, really easy to lose that difference because the world tells us this is what marriage is, but the Bible is the one who said this is what marriage is. So I want to talk, just in your opinions and what you guys have learned through your experience, what is the main difference between the world and believers and how they view marriage?
Yeah. I'll let you start.
Yeah. Well, I think I could sum it up in two words, and it's covenant and contract. And I think, we were talking beforehand, and on one of your other podcasts, you had Jimmy Evans on, and that's where I originally learned about that from his amazing teachings. But that covenant and contract, that where when the world views marriage as what they can get from somebody else, and that's it's selfish, it's temporary, and it just leads to two people cohabitating, you know,
Yeah.
and just living together and seeing what they can get from each other to meet those needs, versus that covenant where there's actually, what can I do for you? And when you have two people looking at what they can give to each other versus what they can get, then you have marriage, because that's exactly our relationship with Jesus, and he gave the ultimate sacrifice for us. And if he could do that, I think he could do that for his bride, us. Then I think that's the model that we strive to of trying to do that for our bride. So
Yeah, and you know, for me, I look at it because I'm in the podcast world and on social media and all the outlets that I am plugged into, I am surrounded by both world and biblical views. And even me as a strong believer, sometimes I can get sucked into listening to what other people think is true about marriage. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, hold on. What are their values? You know, like I'm taking advice, and maybe it's some big social media influencer, for example, that man, on the outside looking in, their life looks amazing. You know, it seems like everything is great, but then at the end of the day, I sometimes have to pause and go, wait, do their values even line up with my values as a believer? And so I think that it's also very interesting, because we live in a day and age where we are kind of, you know, we're of the world, right? You know, we're plugged in and working maybe next to people who have completely different views than us, and to just keep that reminder that it's okay that they view it differently than me, because that's their value and that's their belief, but that doesn't mean I need to adopt it for me, because we practice by different beliefs. You know?
No, that's so good.
Well, and it also lends to, you know, a lot of what people try to teach us about marriage is what our spouse wants. You know, it's like, you know, husbands, do this because she likes that. And that's great. And they're probably, some of those ideas are great. But, you know, the way Jesus taught us about marriage, and I love what you talk about when you talk about covenants, and you talk about relationships where I need to give, this is my call, and you know, you go into the scripture and you talk about the role of the husband and the role of the wife. I mean, it's very much defined for us. We don't need the real world to tell us that. Jesus has already told us that. The Bible's already told us, hey, the covenant, and I know, you know, mentioning Jimmy Evans, what great teachings, and very real teachings that you know, I've learned a lot from being at marriage conferences and through XO and different things like that. But I think it's absolutely phenomenal.
Well, we just talked about it on a previous podcast in Ephesians 5, you know, and it talks about the husband's responsibility, you know, that he's it's a practice, and it's servanthood. I think that's what it is. You know, when you were saying contract and covenant, it made me think of like servant and slave, like almost, because, you know, marriage is a die to self every single day. You know, it's what can I do to serve, to better serve you. And with servanthood, I think comes gratitude. And so just being grateful for, even if you're doing something that annoys me, like leaving all of the, you know, cabinets open or something, you know, not speaking from experience or anything, but, you know, if it's, of course not. If it's something like that, but just being like grateful for.
Are we gonna have some?
Rachel, we're gonna need you to implement. No,
bring it up, you two.
No, but just using that.
I just love it how the annoying things get put to us, and I'm like, wait a second. Let me assure you, there are things.
It goes both ways.
Well, it does. I know there's things that I do that bother you too. But, you know,
let's gloss over those.
But aside from those things, you know, still just being grateful for, you know, for your spouse, and grateful for the things, you know, and just making that a part of your prayer. Like, God, thank you that, you know, for example, thank you that, you know, you are continuing to mold Scott into the leader that he is. You know, show me how you see him, you know, things like that. And so, you know, and just whenever you said that, I was like, man, it really is, it's a servanthood role when you, in marriage, being able to serve each other every day.
Well, and it's a great role to be in. You know, you talked about the difference between the world, and the way that when you described it, the way I thought about it was, well, if you have a partner in marriage, and that's the only thing that you look at it as, a partnership, meaning we're basically like, we just split the bills so that we can both escalate higher quicker. So we're just going to split this up. You take, you know, my half, this half of parenting, I'll take that half. You know, I'll take care of this bill, you take care of that bill. Let's make sure we focus on work, so we'll escalate up the the financial chain will escalate up the social chain, and then you end up, kind of lost in that process.
Yeah, there's more going on than just trying to get a better tax bracket.
Exactly.
And a lot more going on.
Yeah.
And when you join together, you join, not just flesh, but you join your hearts, you join your spirit. And there's a vulnerableness that goes with that and should be with that. But in that contract mindset, that contract relationship, I'm not going to give anything out of my heart till I get some of your heart. Well, who's going to go first?
Right.
And
Yeah.
many times, whoever goes first might get hurt first. And that's a hard pattern to stay in. So that covenant relationship of both of you giving first, being vulnerable first, if you can have that mindset, well, nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not, and definitely not perfect at that, but if you can have that you keep coming back to, you always have something that you can stand on, something that's rock solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. What would you say if there was, and I'm sure there's probably some people who are listening or watching the episode right now, maybe they're experiencing in their marriage right now where one spouse is being a little selfish, or they're just in that place where it's like, hey, I need this from you. Well, you're not doing this, and it's just that cyclical thing that keeps going on. What are some steps or just maybe some, spiritual advice, practical advice that you would give, like if they're just kind of in that rut right now to, start leading them out of that and into some healing in their marriage?
Yeah. You want me to go first?
Absolutely.
Well, something that came to mind when he was talking, I didn't plan on telling on myself in today's episode, but I'm going to. So in our first year of marriage, it's hard to believe because we were a little bit flipped. I didn't have as healthy of a view of marriage going into it that he did. And I definitely had more of a contract mindset, I would say, in the beginning, and was just selfish and had a lot to learn about marriage myself and all the things. And I was just tearing up when he was talking about how Christ loves, the church, and he loved me through that really hard season when, to be honest, anybody else probably would have just walked away from the marriage, in the way I was acting, and I didn't plan on getting emotional about this, but he kept loving me, he loved me, and when I was acting like a fool, he loved me. When I was being selfish, he loved me. Literally showed me he gave me a real life example of what it looks like when Christ comes for us, and he did that in the husband form, like a husband's supposed to. So in our situation, I was definitely more the one that was, going this way, and he was going this way, and him loving me like that. And then investing in our marriage. In fact, that's when we were introduced to marriage today, because our marriage was going sideways, and he was so committed to not letting that happen, even when I wasn't, that he signed us up for, back when Marriage Today used to do, you could be a rock solid partner.
Okay.
And we barely had 2 pennies to rub together because he was in full-time school and we had just had our first baby, but we found a way to make $25 a month. Like that was like, that was like $2,000 to us at the time. Like that was a lot of money. And we'd get their DVDs in the mail every month, and when they sent those out, and we'd watch them, and just him loving on me even when I didn't deserve it, like brought my heart back around to him, but really it brought my heart back around to God, and that's always what we want to do. Like when we're in a sticky place now, even in any time in marriage, when we both go back to God, it's like, that's always my prayer. I'm like, Lord, bring my heart back to you and then back to him. Because if my heart's not pointed to God, it's going to be real hard to get it to point to him, and vice versa. So so that's just some practical tips on loving them through a really hard season, even when they don't deserve it.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And none of us deserve it. But I mean, it's, that you're absolutely right. I mean, in perfect love casts out fear. The greatest of these is love. And what better gift, and just that constant pursuit. And I think you're so right, Rachel. And we talk a lot about divorce, blended family ministry, but it's so optional nowadays, where what you did, Matthew, is so not the norm. But I don't know, it's so encouraging to hear that, because I know that there's people who are out there listening right now that are like, man, like that's where we're at,
Well, and it also goes with the concept of the priorities of marriage.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have, you know, if you're out of sync spouse-wise and your marriage is out of sync and it's going off the rails, if you don't know where to go back to, it will go off and you will crash. Like there is no governing body that's going to put you back on the tracks, on the right path. If you can't have that foundation with Christ and have the knowledge base to go, you know what, we're out of sync, but before I go fix this, let me go fix that. That's where, again, I think you see more marriages fail, is because they don't put that priority of their relationship with Christ at the top of that pyramid and go, let me have that North Star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
So Matthew, I know you've talked about your parents' divorce, and you know, both of us come from blended families. You know, we've talked about it a lot, like how we got here with our family. It was tough, but everybody's situation has shaped them into who they are today. And I know there are people who were listening who come from this, and I just want to hear your story of, you know, how that shaped you as a father and as a husband.
Yeah, well, absolutely. First, I got to recover a little bit from just getting poured on with love here, so I appreciate it. Well, first off, my parents divorced when I was 8 years old, and like a lot of us, and grew up with maybe divorced families or divorced parents or family members who did. And right off the bat, I just want to say, you know, I don't want to speak shame on that. I don't want to in any way, shape, or form. Their marriage is always a good thing, always a good thing. Whether it's your first, second, or whatever it may be, God is always for marriage, and He is always for those two people joining together. So I don't want to speak any shame. But when I was 8, my parents divorced, and I had kind of two examples. One of my parents married again, and they've been with that same spouse almost 30 years, and became a parent to me that poured into my life. I look at that parent now as just another parent. I mean, right there with my others, and they're someone that has really helped mold me and shape me and been a positive influence in my life, and was praying for me to accept Christ when I did, and all those things. And then I have another parent who struggled. She had a lot of battles with marriage, and has been married 5 different times and divorced 5 different times, obviously. And through that, I know that God has done a miraculous work in her heart. My mother, you know, is her heart. And she is really coming back to the Lord, but I've seen her struggle and go through so many struggles in that, and had demons, you know, that she's had to battle through that. So you kind of had 2 different views of that growing up, but I do know that with a blended family, I've seen how much of a blessing that other parent can be, how adding, I never had any stepbrothers, stepsisters through that process, but I just gained new cousins, new grandparents, and it was a blessing through that whole thing to just expand that family. And I see how that can be a good thing. Yeah. But through that process, I also want to speak to couples who have gone through divorce and have kids, who might be thinking that they hurt their kids, and there's hurt involved, no doubt. But God can turn all things back to good, and
He can.
That's right.
And He absolutely can. But I just want to speak to that as someone that grew up in that. There were hard times, but at the same time, I know how God redeems, and He redeemed me. And through that process, and in growing in this family, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I don't know if I would have gone to the points of brokenness at times that pulled me to Jesus. So, so where a lot of kids, you might fear that your kids may see divorce and may be more inclined to, it had an opposite effect on me, and I think it can have an opposite effect on a lot of the younger generation when they see it. It put a drive in me, but I didn't know how to fulfill that drive or how to enact it, but it put a drive in me to not get divorced.
Yeah.
And at first it was just a will, you know, it was my own will, which is never strong enough. But but it put this drive in me to, we will not divorce. And there's, come, heck or high water, it will not divorce. But that only lasts for so long.
Yeah.
And at some point, you've got to give your marriage and submit it. Just under Christ's blood, you just have to submit it and give it this, God, you know marriage better than I do.
Yeah.
Change me so I can be a better husband. And there's a whole process there. But I know from growing up in it, it solidified this desire, but through through teachings, through just my relationship with Jesus, he really helped me to take that will and submit it to him, and then fruit came out of it, I don't know if that hits the answer on the...
No, that was great. I love that.
Well, what I love about the answer is there's a lot of folks out there who have been their parents have divorced, and they're trying to function as a married person. And we've talked in a lot of our podcasts about inner healing. We've talked about breaking strongholds, inner vows, so many things that I know we struggle with because of the past and because of maybe things that were done that we didn't have control over. So what I love is, if anything, it is encouraging that it can be great and it can be successful. And as a step parent, I love what you said, because, that's our goal, and the step parents are out there. You may not be their biological parent, but you can have a tremendous impact. You may not know it until later, but you will have a tremendous impact on their life if you follow, and do it in God's will and love that child, and just, sometimes that's it. Just love them and work.
Yeah, I love that you gave recognition to the step parent, because, and just like in your situation, Matthew, my mom was married 3 times, and my stepdad was actually married 3 times. So my mom and my stepdad, who is my dad, I don't know my biological father, they're each other's third, and they've been married 20, 25, 27 years now. And I would not know Jesus if it wasn't for my dad. I was introduced to Christ because of when he married my mom and my stepsister, and they introduced us to Christ. I became a believer before my mother did. And so I don't think you can ever underestimate, and if there are any step parents listening, like your ministry as a step parent matters. And I think it matters so much more than you probably could ever begin to imagine, because it has an eternal weight on it. I mean, it truly does.
Well, even if you look 2 generations.
Yeah.
Her stepfather, created and helped her understand who Jesus was. That is what put us together, which now has the product of 3 additional sons who love Jesus. I mean, the generational effects, that's where it starts to make me like shake.
Absolutely.
It's like, when you can look up and look backwards and look forward and go, that's what was. That's what Satan controlled, and this is what Jesus conquered.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is what Jesus is going to do with this family from this point forward. And that's what strong marriages do. They're not perfect marriages. I don't want to put this out there and go, hey, we got perfect marriages here. Vanessa and I never argue. I always close the pantry doors. I never snore. I mean, we have issues just like anybody else. The biggest difference is like we talked about before. It's when you can't go anywhere together. Just go to church. or go pray.
Well, on that note, I mean, literally today we just had a big shock to our business. That we're going to be okay from, but it's just okay. We got to change something that's pretty big to us, and it just it's almost like a gut punch sometimes when you think things are going well, and then you get a shock. Okay, we'll be okay, but we got to change, and this had some work. And so at first you just want to separate, but thankfully, or you just want to, at least me, I just want to be on my own for a little bit. But thankfully she can pour in that love, and we prayed about it together. We come back to each other, and through that, we knew we were coming here to share. And it's like, well, okay, of course it's the enemy just trying to keep us from doing that. So we're going to turn back to God and give it to God, and here we are, hopefully serving and ministering to other people that need it as well. Not by our strength, but because there's that marriage there. It helped us it helped bring me back to God today. Literally,
Yeah.
you did.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and back to the original question that we started out is how the narrative the world has on marriage versus as believers. And, I think one lie that the world might tell us is that if you get married, there go all your hopes and dreams. And are you going to really be able to, at least the younger generation, I'm hearing this more, that they're afraid, well, I need to go pursue all my dreams and then maybe I could settle down. Well, we were just talking today too. We were like, neither one of us, like he's the one who encouraged me to start my podcast, like all the things that both of us would say that people would think looked like we were successful. It was because we both, when one fell down, picked the other one up. It's like we're just constantly encouraging each other. And again, to your point, not perfect. We're not perfect. We argue, we bicker. There's all that still there, but we also are each other's biggest fans. And when the enemy tries to kick one of them down, we get in there and we stand guard and we say, you don't get to mess with my spouse, enemy, and just pick each other up. So
we joke that sometimes we'd like to just both be level, but it seems like one of us is down, one of us is up. But without her, I'd just be down a lot more.
And vice versa.
I love that. And I think that's such an encouragement. You guys literally, you're like, we just had this big blow today, but like we're here, my spouse was able to, encourage me, give me hope, and still come and able to share your story. I mean, that's awesome. And I think that just gives anyone hope and encouragement right there. So.
Yeah, if we needed any more encouragement, we're going to ask another question about encouragement. But so I want to just, I have on my heart somebody who's watching this podcast, and we have a lot of single people that watch our podcast too. So I'm just, in my brain, I'm thinking, somebody who's single in that mid-20s range, that's like, what encouragement would you have for me if I'm kind of on the fence about getting married? What would you say? They're sitting right in front of you. What would you say? What encouragement would you give them?
Well, I think back to, I played football in high school and college, and I just think back to one of my coaches, what he said, anything worth working hard for is worth having. And so marriage is work, there's no doubt about it, but you're gonna work whether it's your job or whether it's just putting food on your table as a single person, whatever it may be, you're gonna work. But marriage is probably one of the only relationships, is the deepest relationship that is life-giving. I think in life. And if you're going to work and strive for something, why not strive into building someone else up, because you're just going to receive. You're just going to be blessed. So
that's good.
I think there's too much negativity today in marriage, and I think there's too much focus on the ball and chain, if you will. But I can speak from experience that there has been more freedom in my life, more freedom in my heart and my spirit from just sharing life with Rachel. So I would encourage you to take a leap of faith, just as Jesus called us to do to be a believer. Take that leap of faith in marriage too, and it's worth it.
Yeah, and a thought that came to mind, one of our awesome professors, Dr. Linda Hoover, she said this in one of our classes. She said, any thought that disempowers you is not from the Lord. So if the Lord has put in your heart marriage, and there's a thought there that's trying to talk you out of it for whatever reason, be fear, then that's always just a good measuring stick. If it disempowers you, it's not from the Lord. So
That is so good.
Love it.
Love it. Well, you guys, our last question, and we ask this to everybody who comes on the podcast, but Blended Kingdom Families, the name of the ministry. What is a Blended Kingdom family to you?
Well, obviously my first thought goes to couples who have married, bringing in past maybe children or other past family members and bringing that together. But I think it's also, I think really every family is kind of a blended family. And I don't know if anyone said that answer before or not, but it's just as I was thinking about it, I'm thinking, man, when we joined together, when we married, I mean, we blended, black and white almost. We blended yin and yang. I mean, it was two different upbringings, two completely different mindsets and past and history. So when I think almost every marriage is a blend of sorts, and I think God loves that. I mean, He made us all different colors and from different nations, and so He loves the blendedness that creation brings, and I think that is shown in marriage when you bring two totally different people into two of them into one. So
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And I love the kingdom piece of that,
Yeah.
blending with a kingdom perspective. Anytime you put the kingdom with anything, whether it's business or
It just
family,
works.
I'm like, if you want anything to work, bring Christ into it and let Him work His magic. And you just sit back and enjoy the ride. So,
No, that's awesome. Yeah, we have the saying around here, and it goes right on line with what you said, Matthew. But it's we're all blended in the kingdom, So it's one big blend.
and I hadn't even heard that, but
No, I was like, man, that was good. He hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
Well, guys, we've loved having you. If anybody out there is going to try to find you guys, where can they find you? Where can they find your podcast? All the good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm the one who loves social media, not so much him. But you can see, I think I finally made you an Instagram account, but I think there's two pictures on it. One is me.
He's got only two on his.
I think I have like 70 people that halfway follow me. I'm like, I don't even know who these people are.
I finally wanted to know what the kids were doing through the day, so I had to join.
So I have a website. It's just my name, RachelGilbert.com, and then I'm on Instagram at Rachael J. Gilbert. If you want to know anything about him, our business is backbodyclinic.com. But if you want to know about our family, you need to come follow me. Because he doesn't post pictures, but
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, I again, just so grateful. And again, if you're watching and you're like, need more Real Talk with Rachel, go check out the podcast. It's awesome. And we honor you guys. We bless your family. And we're just so grateful that you were here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in with us. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Again, if you haven't, like, share, subscribe, comment. We'd love to alert you to new podcasts. You guys have a great, great day.
Be blessed in all that you do today.
Hey guys, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
And you can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we hang out with more amazing podcast guests. And remember, nothing will be impossible with God.